All right, we are back in Wukong with the 5050. I've modified my latency and I'm actually showing the preset now. So let me know if you like that down in the comments. I'll keep it that way from now on. It seems to be a little easier to read too, so which is nice. But yeah, we're at 138, 139 FPS here at 1080p. This, of course, is just the low setting. Nothing really spectacular going on here. I'll show you my settings while we get into it, get it started. Let's go ahead and crank this all the way up. I just want to make sure that we are starting a test like any other test. Graphics preset is low, ray tracing is off. Everything looks good here. So let's go ahead and back out and apply that. So this is kind of where it officially starts at. So we're at low settings, DLAA. The preset M is what we're using. We're at 70 FPS here, 73, so we can definitely afford to go up to medium for sure. Now I'm just going to, proceed with caution here because this is a very low-end entry-level card, but, I'm kind of hopeful that with the new upscaling, we'll be able to do a little more than we used to be able to. So let's go ahead and apply that. This is just medium, and as you can see on medium, it looks way better already. Low is pretty rough. But yeah, 64, 65 FPS here. Our latency is looking about 36 milliseconds, which is quite nice. And of course, we are utilizing that preset M on our overrides for the DLSS 4.5 model. So the good thing about this, though, is the RTX 5050 is the only GPU you can get right now for any reasonable access, any reasonable price that has 4.5 and multi-frame generation, which will also support the 6x multi-frame generation as well. So that will be a differentiating factor soon. That's not out yet, but it will be. So I'm seeing prices and stuff on the old 40 series, unless you go used, which you don't have a history of the card at that point. Going new with a warranty is not a bad buy right now. Just due to 4.5, really. I mean, it really has enabled this card to be a little bit more relevant at its price point. So, I'm starting to kind of want to test it more. So I'm doing that now. But yeah, we don't need to go up yet. Let's go ahead and go to high and just see what that does. It's probably going to dip under 60, but yeah, I mean, that's pretty understandable. So let's just keep going through it here. I'm going to go ahead and probably upscale at this point, and then just kind of keep rolling through it. Do a little bit of combat here, so we'll be able to see what we're doing. All right. All right, there we go. Very, very nice. Sweet. All right, so yeah, we're just going to run through it here. Let's jump over and do some upscaling. Just so we can see what we need to do as far as, let's go to quality here. Let's bring it all the way down to 67. That's a quality setting. All right, go ahead and apply it. So right now we are just left it on high, nothing, didn't modify anything. We just brought in some quality upscaling. Now this is where the M model starts to really show its value. Is this looks incredibly sharp. And, this is obviously a little bit better than it has been. Quality always looked good, but especially on 1080p, going past quality was like you didn't really want to do that. It was starting to really degrade the image. You were using a much lower resolution to do that upscale versus like 4K, where it's still stabilized and looked pretty good. But what the preset has been able to do now is allow us to go a little bit harder on upscaling while maintaining a lot of clarity. So that's a pretty good change. So right now I'm just going to go up again to that very next level of graphics. So we're going to leave it on 67. It likes to move. Let's just do that, fix it. All right, so this is very high. Now I like the very high setting a lot on this game because the cinematic is almost like a filter. It does require a lot more horsepower, and it just more or less changes the way it looks. It doesn't necessarily look better. It's just more of a preference. So I tend to like very high. You get a little bit more performance, and you don't have this like kind of haziness to the image. But we're gonna have to go up anyway. But really, the best setting I think for this title would be just leaving it on high on this card, because you start to get diminishing returns past about high, visually speaking. Low looks terrible, medium is a lot better, and high is like kind of that sweet spot to me. So When I get to my recommendation, it'll probably high, just kind of going off what I see now. But yeah, let's go down here and let's kick it over to, let's go to a balanced setting, which is 58. Let's see if we can get a little bit more FPS back. So that didn't quite get us there. Latency is still pretty low, about 50 milliseconds, which is pretty good to see. By the way, if you are using the NVIDIA overlay, which is what I'm doing now, make sure you turn off the there's like the overlay, and then there's like this filter thing that you can also enable. Make sure you have that off because it will dramatically tank your performance if you leave that on, but the overlay is fine. So just, you know, little if you want to replicate what I'm doing here, just make sure that you do not use that photo overlay thing. It will really make your FPS suffer a good bit. All right, so yeah, let's jump over into it. 49, 44. So it's pretty safe to say we're going to have to upscale to a performance setting at least to maintain enough frames for very high. Let's give it a minute, make sure that it's catching up here. Okay, so we're still around the 40s. Let me double check everything, make sure nothing's shifted. All right, so that looks good. All this looks good. Okay, so yeah, we're on very high. Let's go all the way up to cinematic. Let's just get a beat on it just to see what we can expect on cinematic. So I mean, you know, that was a good bit of performance loss versus very high, and then very high was still not maintaining over 60 for us. So what I'm going to do now is probably go back to high, but activate the L model on ultra performance. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and I'll be right back. All right, so here we are back in it. We are utilizing the preset L model on ultra performance. So I'm just going to jump over here, make sure I include these so that you can verify what I'm saying is what I'm doing. So right here we are on ultra performance. Now we can bring this up a little bit more. I think it's 39 is what's technically ultra performance. So we can bring that up a little bit more for some extra clarity. But right here we are back to the high setting. Still no frame generation yet, still no ray tracing. So let's go ahead and jump into it right here. And that does look a little bit sharper, which is nice. So we're about 80, 70 FPS here. And really, to be honest with you, going to ultra performance on preset L looks basically no different than performance does on preset M. So really, if you just want extra, you know, performance, switch over to that L preset and just crank it down to ultra performance, and that will give you a very, very similar image to what performance on M looks like. So that's a really nice thing to see. We got some flickering, which was not there in performance on M, so there is a little bit of a trade-off, but it's nothing too drastic. So whenever we were here, if I can get to the right tab here, just bear with me. All right, so going to very high was not going to give us over 60. But as you can see here, we're right at 60. So on very high, like I said, I prefer very high's look versus the cinematic look. And you are going to get some dips, as you can see here. But, you know, if you consider your latencies at 40 milliseconds, because we have, I'm assuming it's enabling reflex in the menu. It just has auto. But yeah, I'm assuming that's reflex because that's similar. This is similar to what I've seen in other titles. But yeah, we're at 39 milliseconds. So right here, doing a little bit of frame generation would honestly be okay. You know, and that's a good thing to think about too, is like, just because your frame rate is lower than 60 or so, that doesn't necessarily mean you can't frame generate, because it's really going to depend on your latency that you're going into frame generating with. So if I go to cinematic, obviously it's going to go down to you know, a good bit. So right here at 48, 50 FPS, but our latency is under 50 milliseconds. So really, technically at this point, you could do a little bit of frame generation and have a decent experience. Now this is of course without any sort of ray tracing. So that might not necessarily be in the cards, but you can really crank the graphics up a good bit. I mean, right here, we're at cinematic. Now, if I come down here and go to 33, which will upscale it a little bit more for us, it'll give us back a little bit more performance. Not a huge amount, but If you consider that a lot of games are targeting 30 FPS, especially on consoles, it starts to kind of put into perspective what this little $250 graphics card can do when you utilize the DLSS suite appropriately. And that's something to be said for that for sure, because there's no console out there that's 250 bucks. And this thing can honestly be found on sale quite a bit. Now I know that a PC has other components versus just a graphics card, but if you're in the market for a GPU, just to start playing a little bit more intensive games like this, especially at 1080p, and you go into it with the right mindset that you're going to use, some upscaling to get what you need, and don't really care too much about that ray tracing, then it all becomes a lot more. Put into perspective. So I'm just going to fight this dude real quick. Go ahead and wear him out real quick. One of the tougher guys. All right, cool. So let's just get over through here. All right. So what I'm going to do now that I'm in this like kind of watery area, I'm going to kick on some. I'm just going to kick on kind of a setting that I would probably start with, especially at this level of upscale. So I'd come down here. If I don't go to the right tab, I swear. All right, so I'm going to go down to high because, like I said, that is a pretty good setting. So I'm going to do now is do a restart, put all this into effect. We're going to start back with just the bottomed out version of Ultra Performance on L. And we're going to introduce some ray tracing with that preset set on high. So I'm going to do that now, and I'll be right back. All right, so here we are back in it. We are going to pay most attention to our PCL because I'm going to introduce some frame generation. But right here, I'm just going to show you exactly the settings that I have. So right now, we are on that preset L, which looks phenomenal. I mean, it just looks so much better than it ever has. We're doing some ray tracing on low, and we have our graphics preset to high, which is, in my opinion, the best setting for performance and visuals. So I'm just going to leave it there for now. We're just going to explore some ray tracing because I think in combination with high and some ray tracing, you can start to get some really nice lighting and some really beautiful gameplay here with 55, 59. I mean, you're not 60 all of the time, but you also have a pretty low latency. So you can do some frame generation here and get that back up. And we'll take a look at that toward the end of the video. So make sure you stick around for it. But yeah, we are looking like in pretty good shape here. And it's largely due to just using that high preset and not being obsessed with like going all the way up to cinematic and stuff. I mean, it's just very, very diminishing returns. So let's leave this on high and just leave the ray tracing on medium and see what we can do there. Now this is going to bring in basically reflections, but it's not going to be like the cinematic or the ultra ray tracing, which does a lot more than that. You can look it up. It adds like a lot of different global illumination stuff to it that makes it look a lot more believable and lifelike or whatever. But we are on a 50-50, so we need to set our expectations accordingly. That's a pretty big snag right there, but this area typically will snag on just about any GPU I've ever tried, so we'll forgive it. But we are staying around 60 FPS, that's promising. So that light right there always makes it hang up. So this is just kind of a little bit of a rough area. That's one other thing is like, do you want to have 90% of it feel really good, or do you want to set your settings to the lowest common denominator? I'm fine with everything being like good most of the time with just a few snags here and there. That doesn't bother me too much. So everybody's a little different though. So right now I would probably say that we can go over, and this is probably going to be the exciting part because of just how affordable this GPU is. Let's go back to medium. And let's turn on some 2x frame gen. So we're back on ray tracing medium, or back on ray tracing low, I'm sorry. And we're on our preset high. This is going to be a good preset to test all this out with. So this is just basically your shadows. But that, as you can see, gives us a latency of 5950 milliseconds, which is perfectly acceptable for a game like this on a controller. That's not anything that's going to be like game breaking or hard to sense your controls and all that kind of stuff. Like it's to me, it's perfectly fine. Everybody's different. That's why I like to put that up there. But you're at 100 FPS here. Now, if I go up any more with that 2x on, I'm just gonna add frame generation when necessary right now, and then I'm gonna bring it back in a little bit later to give you guys more of a overall. So if I go up to my ray tracing medium, this is probably a setting that I would play. This is most likely the case, is a 2x frame gen, ultra performance on the preset L. Your latency is around 53 milliseconds right here. Now, it is a little harder to run over here in this forest, but you're well over 60 FPS, and it's shockingly beautiful. I mean, this looks really, really nice. It's got its moments, of course. It's not absolutely perfect, but when you are considering maybe you've got an old PC laying around that was using integrated graphics and you want to start getting into some gaming and stuff, this ain't a bad investment. I mean, it's dirt cheap. It's 250 bucks, and a lot of times you can honestly find it on some sort of discount somewhere. I've seen it as low as like $229 before, so you can get it for less than MSRP, because nobody's tripping over themselves to get a 50/50, so they're available. But yeah, we're looking like 90 FPS here. Let's just keep on going though. I want to check out what cinematic would look like, and just kind of see what worst case scenario would be. So let's go back, turn that off, leave that on auto. That's helping out our PCL a lot. So let's go up to very high. So this is, as you can see, the very highest level of ray tracing. So this is going to do a lot. This is going to really tank our performance, but it's not unplayable. I mean, we're over 30 FPS, which, if you remember, a lot of consoles do target that. And what that does is it brings in these beautiful transparent effects in the water. As you can see, you can kind of like see the bottom of it. It's really making the lighting just look so realistic. This is no frame generation, and our latency is still around 51, 52. All right, so if I come in here and just kick on frame gen, that is going to smooth it out tremendously. All right, so let's come in here and just do that. So I'm just gonna leave it on 2x. We don't want to do any more than we need, just due to latency and stuff. So that's going to give us, let's let the latency kind of settle down. It takes it a minute. That's going to give us a latency that is still in the 50s, and on a controller, which is 9 times out of 10 how you're going to play a game like this, this is not a bad experience at all. So what we're at now is the high preset with full path tracing on this title. Now it is reporting preset L. That is the most accurate thing that I can provide for you guys on the screen. You know, if this is using any sort of ray reconstruction, it will typically break that model, and you'll see that preset switch down to like D. And it's not doing that. So that tells me that the ray tracing, or the ray reconstruction, if there is any in this preset, there's nothing that's like super clear in the menu, is not breaking the preset, which is good. And I can kind of tell just by looking at it, it looks very sharp. I mean, you can tell instantly if you're on the old preset at Ultra Performance. It looks terrible compared to the new L preset. So this is pretty promising. We're at 75 FPS, latency is around 64, 66, which on a controller, anything under about 75 or 80 is usually fine with me. That's just me personally. So what I'm going to do now is go up one more on our preset and see how it runs. So let's just get into it. And as you can see, we're still in the 70s, 75 FPS here. And our latency stayed about the same. We're still in the 60s. Okay, it just kind of settled down a little bit. Still in the 60s, which, like, you know, if you're on a controller, this is going to feel okay. Now, I am getting a little bit of interpolation tearing. That's kind of like when your real frames are starting to get too far apart and frame generation is starting to have a hard time keeping up. So you get these like kind of strange ripply tears through the screen. The real fix for that would honestly be to just lower your settings. We're going to see if any sort of additional frame generation may help that. Let's jump into it here. All right, so let's see here. We got 97 FPS here, which is a nice improvement, but our latency did go up a good bit. So it looks like I'm still seeing some tearing. So it looks like you're probably going to have to lock your frames to your frame rate, which, you know, in this case, I would probably just say lock it to, you know, like 60 or whatever an interval of your refresh rate on your screen would be. So if you're at 144 hertz display, you could knock it down to lock it to 72, and maybe potentially minimize that, you know, interpolation tearing. But things are a little bit flickery, so I would probably just recommend not bothering too much with going up beyond high. It's just not worth it. It's too much. It's too much on the GPU for very little trade-off. I'm gonna go ahead and test cinematic anyway. Again, this is like this is the highest level of basically everything you can run, and this preset L is like doing some heavy work for us here. We're still at 57, 58 FPS, and our latency though is a little bit too high. I mean, it's around about 80, I'd say a little over 80. So it's a little too high for me personally, but you know, everybody's different when it comes to latency. Sometimes it's too high for some people, and it's, you know, just fine for others. I just like to put that on the screen so you can take a look. So let's check it out here with a 3x frame gen, and let's do a little recap. So we're going to go 3x. That was 2x. So right here we are looking like let's get it to load in here for us. 92 FPS. Latency's around 75, 74. Now I'm not saying you can't get used to this latency. It's not like game breaking or anything, especially on a controller. You just have some weird flickering, a little bit of anomalies. That interpolation tearing is a little annoying. You know, and so it's reduced on the 3x and probably the 4x as well, because you're staggering those frames a little better. So you could just lock the frames to get rid of it, like I mentioned earlier, or, you know, put up with more latency by using, you know, 3x or 4x. Not really worth it to me, but, you know, I'm not here to really give anyone some sort of laws of the universe or anything. I'm just showing you what I got. So yeah, right here we're at 120-ish, almost 120 FPS. Now it did reduce that interpolation tearing a little bit. It's still present, but it's not as bad. But my latency is still acceptable. I mean, it depends on where you're at. It's very sensitive to environment. So, you know, as I go through this tunnel here, it tends to change a good bit versus like down in the forest. It's, you know, completely different. Might be a little worse, but that's just all kind of like, it's just kind of up to you what you want to do. So how I would probably play this game is I would come down here. I would leave my, I would bring this down to 2x, leave this on super resolution 33 with that preset L. I would come in here and drop this to high, and I would probably just play this on medium. That's going to give you plenty of performance. It gets rid of all that frame tear or all that interpolation tearing. It looks phenomenal. Your latency is good. You're able to do ray tracing on this card now, thanks basically to preset L and ultra performance. Those two things made the 5050 a ray tracing card at 1080p, which is just absolutely wild to me. You know, basically a free update just gave you the ability to, you know, use a very entry-level card on something like this. So that's going to wrap it up, though. I really appreciate everyone who has stuck around and watched. You know, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. If you're not new, thanks for coming back. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you guys in the very next video. Peace.